I'm Eric Gore, Technical Director here at CSI. With me today is Brian Wallander, one of our project managers for field services. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to seal hygienically wall penetrations and holes in your hygienic processing space. Before I do that, I'm going to share just a little bit with you about what is CSI. CSI is a company that engineers, designs, and builds hygienic processing systems. We're also a distributor of all the components used in process systems, for example, pumps, valves, and one of the products we're going to be highlighting today called Pipe Tight. One last thing before I move on to the next phase. If you have questions, type them into the chat and we will do everything we can to address them as they come in. If by chance we don't get to you by the end of this presentation, we will circle around with you just shortly afterwards. With that, Brian, holes in a hygienic processing space, say wall, ceiling, floor, why does it matter? Why do people seal them?
So yeah, you always want to seal up any penetrations you may have going into these processing rooms to keep outside contaminants outside. You know, you don't want to have any different temperature fluctuations in your clean rooms. You know, if you're a wash down facility, you don't want any water getting outside of that room. You know, it could get into interior walls and kind of ruin insulation. You know, just all kinds of problems can come with that. And, you know, if you're getting audited, you know, you're probably going to get questioned about any holes in your clean rooms if they're not sealed properly. So there's all kinds of reasons, and, you know, those are the main ones that I'll talk about. You know, what are some things you've seen people do?
What I've seen them do, this is probably the most common thing that I've seen plants do. I call it a scutcheon. So it's just a stainless ring. Say they're using hygienic tubing, they might put it through this, and then afterwards they would come along, and you can even see this one that fell off of a plant has caulking on it. They might caulk it to the wall, trying to get it to seal or stay in place. Maybe sometimes they might tack weld it to things. Yeah. The problems we usually find with that is they just almost never stay attached to the wall. Inevitably there's some movement in the piping due to temperature, possibly water hammer or something of that nature, and it breaks them loose. Even if there doesn't seem to be much movement in that piping, it's pretty common that plants will have a preventative maintenance behavior to go along and check them, and you'll find that they're not sealed to the tubing for sure, and even a lot of times they've come loose from the wall and have slid down away from the wall, requiring them to have to address it.
Yeah, definitely. We see that a lot, and you know, we see some places they'll even go so far as just using caulking around the holes. You know, if they don't have a wall plate or a discussion handy, they'll just caulk around the hole, you know, and it's messy. It might look good at first, but it'll start cracking, peeling away. It's just, you're going to lose your seal over time, and it's just really not a good idea to use caulk or the wall plates for that matter. So with that being said, what would you suggest?
The main thing that we recommend really is Pipe Tight. And Pipe Tight is really a one and done solution. It's self-sealing, it's hygienic, seals to the wall and to the tubing or structure or pipe that you're putting through that hole. It's permanent, it's flexible, it really is a true one and done solution. And it comes in a wide range of options. So I guess we'll start maybe by sharing with you Pipe Tight Standard, which is what I have here in my hand. These are generally used for first-time installations on brand new installs. So that's a unattached one. These are some examples of some that are already hooked to a wall. See, like I said, wide range of sizes. You can see how well it's sealing to the wall and to the, in this case, sanitary tubing. This is a real good example of that. You can see that what's holding this liquid in this is the Pipe Tight. So, you know, obviously I'm talking about hygienic tubing here, but Brian, what's some other applications that you've seen these used in services?
Yeah, so you can pretty much use it on all types of piping. Like Eric said, process lines, you know, mechanical lines, electrical conduit, you know, PVC, CPVC, You can use it for structure even. There's really no limits to it. You can use it on most anything that you can get to go around, and it provides you a nice sanitary seal around there. You're not gonna have to worry about anything once you put the pipe tight on there.
So Brian, I talked a little bit about standard pipe tight.
Okay.
What would you do if, say you already had piping passing through a wall and it's open, you've been hit on an audit, and you need to do something with it?
Right, so that's a good case for us to talk about the pipe tight reboot. So right here we've got the pipe tight reboots. Two cases. This one's uncut. This one's obviously been cut around this piping, and it's good instance for you've already got existing piping going through your wall and you want to seal up that hole. Put the pipe tight reboot around there, cut it to size, and then crimp your staple and mount it to your structure. You're good to go on that.
Okay. Well, I have another question. These flat ones, they're a little different than the standard that I showed, and then the reboots. What are people using these flat ones for?
So kind of the same instance as a reboot, you know, for existing installations. Say you already had some piping running through and you demoed it. So now you've got a hole in the wall you want to seal up. So really good instance for using the pipe tight flat. It's quick one and done deal. You don't have to put any flashing around it. You know, you just screw it down to there, and you provide that nice sanitary seal. So that's one instance. And then another, we can come over here to show you on a tank outlet. You can use pipe tight flats. This is another really good instance for this tank outlet here. Keeps you a nice sanitary seal around there, and everything stays nice and flush to the tank and still gives you that look. And you can see we've used the gray one here because some people might like the gray color a little bit better to go with the tank. So there's your two instances of flat. Eric, you want to tell us about the grommet?
Yeah, I'll share a little bit with you about pipe tight grommet. So this is an example of a pipe tight grommet. Here I've got one that's uninstalled. So they come with the ends completely sealed. So similar to the flat, sometimes people will use these to seal holes, essentially existing penetrations through their enclosure. And then the end can be cut off with a knife or a pair of scissors. And you can put, say, poly tubing, electrical cord, things of that nature through it in a self-sealing manner. And these are available in a lot of different options. I have, for example, what we call a multi-grommet. So if you had a larger hole in your enclosure and wanted to bring several different things through. And they're available in sizes, you know, ranging all the way up into something similar to this. So Brian, I got one other variation I'd like you to share with maybe the folks.
Yeah.
Can you tell them a little bit about this version, which we call pipe tight sleeve boot?
Yeah, so the pipe tight sleeve boot, this is a good instance where you'd use this if you've got any piping passing up through a production room like platform. You're coming up through the floor, passing from, you know, floor one up to above, and you'll use this because you've got your sleeve that you've sleeved your hole with, and you've got your inner tube for your product line passing through. Well, you want to seal that penetration as well. This is the pipe tight sleeve reboot. You can put around an existing one, or we've got this pipe tight sleeve just standard that you don't have this staple. You know, you'd use that in any new installations. But that'll prevent anything from going through your floor penetrations down below. You know, keep everything in your wash down room where it's meant to be and funneled towards any drains and whatnot instead of just falling straight through your hole.
Okay. So I have another question for you on, you can see on these where they're hooked to the, in this case, this display wall.
Yeah.
Sheet metal screws. What are some other ways that you see people attaching pipe tight to, say, a wall?
Right, so yeah, like Eric said, the sheet metal screws, they're really good for, you know, IMP walls, any stainless mounting structures that you might need to go to. We've also got, you know, specific pipe tight anchors as well that are used for all your other applications. You've got the plastic insert with the hammer in stainless screw, and then you've got some that are made specifically for concrete, you know, cinder blocks. You just drill a hole and then tap these in, and that'll provide you a good anchor for those.
Okay, so you mentioned IMP panel. You mean insulated metal panel,
Correct.
which is a real common wall and ceiling structure we see in hygienic processing plants. But concrete, very common. Dairy tile, so commonly hooks to dairy tile or connects with it. Drywall is very common as well. Then we see them used inside and very commonly also outside. So with that, do you have any tips on, besides anchoring it, maybe ways to cut them or other good ways to use pipe tight?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's come over here. So we'll grab just a pipe tight standard. You know, for example, you can see they've got all your size measurements pre-marked on there. So there's no guessing. You don't have to try and measure the silicone boot or anything. You just find what size your pipe is, your OD of your pipe, find the corresponding mark, and then you cut it. So, and we've got these nice seam rippers that work really good for cutting along there. So it's a lot better than using your pocket knife or a pair of scissors or something. This will give you a nice clean cut. Find your pre-marked line and just cut around the groove, and that'll give you a nice clean cut to go around your tubing.
If you had one last tip for people on what's something that they need to watch out for when they're using pipe tight to make sure they're happy with it, what would that be?
Yeah, I think, you know, just the most important part is just paying attention to your size. You don't want to cut it too big, because then you're not going to get your nice seal around your tubing. And cutting that and then mounting it, you know, you want to make sure you anchor it good. Okay. Both sides of that pipe tight are sealed good, you're going to be set.
Yeah, so it's fair to say it's designed to stretch over the tubing.
Oh, absolutely.
So you cut the hole fairly small, or seems like it. Okay,
oh, yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Brian, for your knowledge and sharing it with us. We're here to answer questions. If you have any, type them in the chat. We'll address them. And thank you very much for joining us today. We have a question, what is the maximum temperature for the boot material, or just in general, what is the temperature range for these?
Yeah, so it goes all the way from -40 degrees Fahrenheit up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So you've got a real wide temperature range. You can handle the steam applications, you know, all the way down to glycol piping, anything that's going to get really cold.
Okay. Next question. What is the largest size available?
So on the pipe tight standard and the pipe tight reboot, you can go up to 15-inch OD pipe.
Yeah, I happen to have, this was just sitting right off the screen, so that kind of gives you an idea of what that size looks like.
Yeah.
Another question. Can pipe tight be used on shapes other than round? So I think square tube, rectangular tube.
Oh yeah. Yep, you can use it on square tube, structure supports. It works really good. You just got to be sure and cut the boot small enough so it does stretch around those sharp edges, you know, forms that tight seal on your square rectangular tubing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of folks use it where they have structure coming down through IMP panel walk-on ceilings.
Yep, exactly.
To support piping.
Still give you a nice seal.
So they are asking what the material of the metal ring is. So this.
Yep. So it is 316 stainless steel. Will come standard on all of the variations of the pipe tight.
Yeah, very suitable for wash down environment for sure.
Yep.
Well, with that, I appreciate you joining us. I think this concludes pipe tight. Before I let you go, we do have same time tomorrow another presentation focused on tote tilting and on IBC tote cleaning. So if you'd like to join us for that, I believe Ian Garris from our team will be presenting that bit of information to you. Again, thank you for joining us.